live back, the Coverager podcast. Late. I keep doing this. I keep forgetting what date we are, but it's June 18th, late in the afternoon, and we're going to have a conversation about systems, insurance systems, legacy systems, and the evolution of where it's going. My guest is Wendy Aarons-Corman. Wendy, welcome from
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Historic Connecticut.
Historic Connecticut, a town called Collinsville.
And it finally turned hot?
It's hot today, yeah.
You went from typical New England, you went from winter directly into summer?
Yeah, we went into summer today, and it's supposed to be a heat wave this weekend, you know, considering a couple weeks ago, I think we had some snow. So
yeah,
never get in between. So what are you going to
do? Typical New England.
Yeah.
We're going to have today a conversation on basically legacy issues and systems within insurance, because you are, I think, founder or co-founder of a company called OWIT. So I want to start right off the bat and give you a platform and talk about Wendy Aarons-Corman, who you are, and what is OWIT.
Sure. Okay, so you said my name, Wendy Aarons-Corman. So I have been in the insurance and technology segment pretty much my entire career. I started as a software developer, math computer science major who came out of college vowing she would never work in the insurance industry because it was old technology and who wants to work on COBOL systems.
Yeah.
But I did find a really wonderful startup company here in Connecticut, in Simsbury, Connecticut, that was looking for developers to develop in, it was C#, SQL Windows, Gupta Technologies, relational databases. It was all brand new, and that's where I got my start in the insurance industry. So we were doing state-of-the-art insurance processing systems. We were building our own. And I loved it. I loved interacting with the business. I loved learning about the business and then developing systems for that. And we were in a very dynamic specialty insurance lines. And so everything was changing all the time in terms of getting new products to market. So it was very dynamic. Actually, the entire company was young, and it was just, we were all, you know, really living it and loving it. So anyway, that's where I got my base, and we were eventually acquired by Chubb, and I worked with a insurance exchange effort by the chairman of the company was called Executive Risk. So he wanted to do an insurance exchange. So I became his chief technology officer and had a great time learning about new technologies for the internet, because the internet was just coming around and there was an opportunity there. But the problem with the business model at the time was that the large insurance carriers were not ready to give up their agents. So it was a very difficult sell, at least to the larger carriers. But in the process, the CIO at CNA Insurance introduced me to a bunch of guys who were just developing a new product for the internet. It was all XML-based, tool-based. They were just getting started, and their names were, the company was called Duck Creek Technologies, right? Small company, I think just a handful of people out of Bolivar, Missouri. Got to know the guys. I loved what they were doing. It was amazing. Product configuration, tool-based XML, that's exactly what we needed for this insurance exchange. And while this effort at Chubb did not work out, I was asked to join the team to help them grow the business. So basically, I was a software developer, but I was the extrovert of the team, and so I became business development. And so some guy, the CEO of Duck Creek, took me by the hand and said, "You're going to be great at this." And I loved it. I love the business development, because really what it is talking to people to find out what their problems are, what they're trying to solve, and then seeing if the technology will fit the problem. And that's how we approached the industry.
Isn't it funny how sales just boils down to that?
It's all it is. It's just having a conversation. And the thing about sales is that you have to realize that if it's not a match, you got to walk away.
Yeah.
And there's two reasons for that. One, because you're not going to be successful no matter how you try to retrofit that square peg in that round hole. But secondly, somebody's going to get hurt for it, and it's most likely the person who made the decision. You know, it could be a CIO loses a job, and it's just not worth it. I mean, human to human, let's do what the right thing is.
I like that.
So yeah, it was good. So we were a great group of people. We grew that company. Eventually that company sold. I did some consulting work for some software companies, and I did some strategic consulting for technology teams in terms of growth. Um, but along came this opportunity here, and I'll just throw myself into this OWIT Global. So OWIT Global, we got together, a bunch of folks, just a few of us, about 2 years ago, and we're trying to figure out what we could do that was not a Me Too type of an organization. At this point, Guidewire and Duck Creek, and they're all massive companies making massive amounts of money, and we're not looking to compete with any of that. We just would not win. So what we did realize, though, is that all these investments in legacy systems were out there, and that people were trying to rip and replace, which is a traditional way of updating your technology. And we wanted to give people an option. What if we extend your legacy? What if we could fit in these technology components that would extend them to, digital, or extend it to the web if they're not web enabled, or extend it to add another coverage without having to wait to get that coverage into that legacy system.
And when you say extend, it sounds like, from the way you're describing it, it's like extend and enhance. Like, not keep it at the level it was performing, but not do anything crazy. Keep it alive, but also give you additional capabilities, type of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So in other words, those core systems are good systems generally. They're processing large amounts of premium, and they're probably doing a great job. The problem starts when you start to make changes to those systems. The testing cycles are long, right? Or it takes a long time to get a new product into the system. So what if you could extend those to enhance those? Exactly. I think that's very well said. So, so we were very keen on doing something with microservices. And we also thought that with the microservices that we could build, that if we combined our own microservices together, we could sell solutions for people who needed solutions, right? So anyone could build microservices. There's no doubt there are tools out there to do that, but what we provide is insurance-specific microservices.
Yeah.
So they'll have workflows or some sort of a content in them that are basically made to fit an insurance environment, right?
And that's a very important point. I don't want to get too far away without clarifying for those in the audience that might not be aware. First of all, your approach is to go after bits and pieces of it to extend and enhance, but rip and replace or just a complete overhaul it could be in the tens of millions of dollars, right?
So expensive, crazy money, such crazy money. And we're trying to solve that problem. I would think that over time, with success of people engaging with microservices products, that the price points will come down, that there'll be options for them not to have to spend all that money. It is very, very expensive. And actually, it's a very good point, because when we go out and talk about microservices, we look at the numbers of how much it costs to rip and replace versus if you had done something with microservices, right?
Yeah.
So we started developing product. Our innovation officer, his name is Ethan Whitaker. He's up in Maine. He was actually a Duck Creek guy. Duck Creek bought his billing system and built their billing on his system. So Ethan's built and sold other products. He's amazingly talented, and he's trying to, he's thinking all the time of how we can do this better, more efficiently, right? So we have a no-code environment. I know a lot of people talk about low-code, no-code, but we truly are a no-code. So it's all drag and drop workflows, calculations, screens for user experience, things like that. It's all no-code. So we have a canvas, and that's how that works. We are committed to that environment because we do want the business analyst or the marketing person to be able to manage, the changes that come through. We started with rating. We have rules. Rules is embedded in everything we do. So it's a separate microservice. You could buy it separately, but it communicates with all of our microservices because there's rules in everything you do. User experience services, document services. There's a lot of document generation solutions out there, but all we do is take data, generate a document, and save it or email it or do something with it. Whereas all of the other systems that have been out there that have come out over the years, there's lots of bells and whistles, but people were paying and not using those bells and whistles. So we've actually had some conversations going on with a carrier out in the West that all they want to do is generate a document. Perfect. That's all we do. It generates 2 hours for a proof of concept for a document, just to give you some sense of the speed. And then we have, if you push our solutions together, as I talked about, they all talk through APIs. So when we solution sell, we talk about portals, business to business, business to consumer, internal portals. We can take disparate back-end systems and create a single view of all of those. So to the user, it looks like one system, right? That's a single user experience. Yep. We're doing a broker portal for a carrier. We're in conversations, obviously, with other carriers as well. Point of sale, everything. I mean, you can take the pieces you need. If you have a rating engine, you don't have to use ours. You use our front end, you use our doc gen, you use our rules, our integration service, and you use your rating service. But if you need rating, we can give you rating. It's all bits and pieces and parts. You pick the pieces that you need.
Yep.
And then we have this wonderful product called Bordereau Management. And so prior to coming to OWIT Global, I was doing some consulting work for a very large bonding authority company who was acquiring more and more companies over time. And I found out that the managing of Bordereau feeds coming in, MGUs or MGAs into the carriers, was all being done manually. And these are large companies with lots of contracts and tons of data coming in. And it was taking multiple people all month to get Bordereau reports, right as they came in, and then getting them ready to go out, like to the, it was crazy. So we have an amazing Bordereau management solution. It's all made out of microservices. And for the MGU, it takes data out of databases, creates those contract Bordereau reports to send out, cleanses them, consumes data, cleanses them, maps them and creates the file. For the carrier, it consumes the data. It'll cleanse it, again, go through a logging process to make sure it's right. You can go through the correction process, map it, and then save it to a database, right? And then all the data can go out to the other, people in the distribution chain. But so we're very excited about that because it is a lightweight, it's no code, drag and drop, it's very easy to configure. We can get your first product up, pretty much running for policy, cash, and claims, within 6 weeks, and the rest of it you can keep doing on your own once you get trained. Of course, there's integration work that needs to get done, but generally the carrier would do that, into their systems. But we're very proud of that product, and we're demonstrating that 2 to 3 times a week now. Yeah. It's really fantastic. The one point I would make about the microservices, the big value proposition, is that they are reusable. So when you buy a system, you buy a complete system, it does this, right? When you buy a solution that's built on microservices, you might have 3, 4, 5 microservices that are under there making that happen. You can take one of those out if you have another project in the future and reuse that for a project. So if you're doing point of sale and then you decide you want to do a broker portal, you can use the user experience service that's part of that point of sale solution and use that for the other project. That's a huge value proposition to the buyer.
Well, I wanted to keep harping on the microservice thing because you touched on it initially with the lower cost, lower investment, but it's also lower risk too, right? Because these are small bits of code that do a particular job. If one thing I like about microservices is you can string them together, mm-hmm. right? So all of a sudden you have this like new unique workflow that's occurred. But I think one of the interesting parts about microservices is that it solves part of the problem that got us to where we are today, where you have these like big lumbering systems where it's really, when a new technology like the internet comes on board, it's really difficult to shoehorn that in without just reconfiguring
Right.
the whole system. But with a microservice, if your little bit of code becomes outdated, there's a new way to do it. You can
Yeah.
just kind of pick that up and drop a new one in that incorporates that new technology. So you've dramatically, not only have you dramatically lowered the cost, you've dramatically lowered the risk of your
Mhm.
systems going forward, which is why I'm such a big fan of these microservices.
Yeah. And it's a very good point. You know, they are replaceable. There's no doubt. I mean, instead of replacing the whole system, you can replace a part of it, which is really nice. It's almost like going and getting your alternator
Yeah.
replaced, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely a huge value proposition. I also think that microservices are going to get more intelligent in time. So, you talk about what you don't know is going to happen. So what we always talk about is the fact that the ecosystems are going to change. I truly believe that portals will not, will be, de facto, right? Because if you look at the people that are using their phones to get information, especially, the next, group of buyers that are coming
Yeah.
up, they're going to go to some, place that they're familiar with to shop, something, or they're going to find out from a friend, where should I go to look for insurance, right? It's not necessarily going to be go to this portal, right? It's going to be some sort of
Yeah.
comparative rating,
Yeah.
some kind of thing. So being able to feed all of those, ecosystems with the data for quotes or binding or whatever that might be, and sort of go headless, I think is where it's going to end up. I mean, we're seeing a little bit of traction happening on the headless agent, the headless carrier for the agent. That demand is beginning to pick up a little bit. We have an integration service that supports that, because what happens is the integration service can connect to different ecosystems, including things that come down the pike, maybe IoT or blockchain or whatever. We'll see where that goes. But it can connect, your systems to those systems, and it can, you can configure what data needs to go back and forth, and you can apply workflow to the data. So if you have to decline something because it's, out of your box, or something is not a good fit, the workflow can be embedded right in there. So what it does is it puts the process to the front, and it doesn't,
Yeah.
belabor the input and all those things that people don't like to do. But I would say that, microservices are going to get more intelligent. They're going to be able to, shake hands, say, how you doing? Yeah, you're right. I'm going to do business with you. That's okay. It's secure. And then they'll go off and, do some exchange to get to the end result. And I think that's where our microservices will lead as well,
Yeah.
in that
What
category.
what are the potential limitations for a company that does have significant legacy debt, right, with their IT, is interested in microservices, thinks of it as like, okay, this is we don't have to spend tens of millions to do rip and replace. Let's go microservices. Is it possible for microservices to almost be like a RoboCop, where you could essentially build enough of a scaffolding of microservices to extend it out indefinitely? Or do you see it as, if the legacy debt is significant, is there a limitation to what microservices can do in terms of extending and enhancing?
Yeah.
Because I think there's still a balance to be had there, right?
Yeah. That's a good question. I would say that, for us, it's all about being able to connect, right? If your legacy system is not open, and it's hard to get data out of it, it's going
Yeah.
to be a real challenge. I can give you an example, and I'm not going to say what the system is or anything like that, but we had an opportunity to front end a legacy system, and we couldn't do it. And it's not because we were incapable. It's just that
The system.
the system was all the rules. Okay, so if you're going to front end a system, you got a couple of choices. You can either put the rules in the front end in the portal, right, in that user experience piece. And then, you're going to have to, maybe if they're in the other system, they might be duplicate, right? But you don't really want to duplicate those rules. So if you have a system where you can get to the rules, or you have a rules engine, that's great, because, I'm putting in data, and you say, okay, do you have a swimming pool? Yes. Okay,
Mhm.
next question. Do you have a diving board? Yes. Now what do I need to ask? Are you willing to remove it, right? There's a whole bunch of interaction that needs to take place. some of those systems, the way that they're built, you can't get to the rules, right? It's part of the metadata, and it's not, separated so that it's easy to connect to, like being
Yeah.
an XML or something like that. So for those types of systems, there's going to be challenges in making decisions. Are you going to be able to, extend those systems or not? If you want to, you might have to duplicate the rules. So not every single implementation of microservices is going to be cut and dry, because sometimes it's hard to get to the information inside those systems because they're so entangled inside.
Yeah.
Not all systems are like that, but there are systems that are there. So it's coming through those challenges. And I think that people are just going to have to make decisions. If they want to play, if they want to extend, what are they going to be able to do? Most people can, develop APIs or some sort of JSON or XML feed or whatever that might be. And then we're off and running. Not a problem. I would say the majority, but there is that limitation that that we've come up against, and I expect we'll see it again. And those are the ones that we walk away from, because there's, it's you make a decision, you decide what you want to do, and if you feel that you want to do it this way, this is the only way we can do it, then we're here. Otherwise, we have to walk away.
Yeah,
So.
I have firsthand experience dealing with something like that with a carrier I worked with that had two different mainframe systems. That wasn't necessarily the issue, but they did convert. They did a rip and replace on the accounting system. So the accounting system was much more modern, much better system.
Yeah.
But there was a divorce now between the policy information
Mhm.
and the accounting information, and our ability to reconcile the two pieces became a nightmare for us. We were always, no matter what we did, we were always like 10 or 20% off. 10 or 20% off on the exposure
Yeah.
information, or we got the exposure information correct and we were 10 or 20% off on the premium information, but we were always off on something. And so it was really
Yeah.
hard to build models and other stuff on top of that, because everything was a long, drawn out process just to make sure that we were dealing with good data.
Yeah.
And then you brought up the whole bordereau thing, and that was like a whole other, exactly. Like we had to use a separate system to sort of manage a lot of the bordereau stuff, because it's like, which one of these do we fully rely on? And nothing was nailed down. It became really difficult to function in that environment.
Yeah. I mean, you have to make decisions. Some of those systems are going to have to go in time, but look, I've had conversations with CIOs that are very forward thinking in a very old fashioned environment. And so they know they want to create a brand new infrastructure, and microservices is part of it. Yeah. And some of these guys are up against the fact that, one, their management, they don't want to make the investment. So they have to have make what they have work. Right. And the other challenge I think that people are up against is that, they have IT staff that want to build everything. Right. And so that's,
Yeah.
we're up against that too. But, what we do is we try to educate, the technology team that, this is a really good thing for the business. And let's show you how and what your role is here. But, it's because of all this legacy spend and replacement, some companies can continue to do it and over again. But there are a lot of companies, like regional sized companies, that just can't afford it.
Yeah.
So that's a good fit for us. And, we're trying to focus on being almost like the moon around the earth type of thing initially. Like, let's extend it. Let's add this. Let's do this. Although I will tell you, we're just signing a deal for a full, complete insurance processing system, including bordereau, that we'll have out by the end of the year. So but here's why we got the deal. There are other systems out there to choose from. This company is a startup, and it's, and so they don't have a lot of money, obviously. And they are trying to roll out a system in pieces and parts, because they just don't have the bandwidth, number one, to do all that work. They're going to do part of the process manually. So we're able to provide them with the system so that they can, do the data entry, externalize a rating, plug it in, we'll create a document, then we'll plug in a rating engine. We can do those things in pieces and parts over time. And so because of that, that's why we ended up being a good fit for them, because they weren't ready to do an all-inclusive system all at once. So,
well, I mean, you brought up a good point, right? Like, which is, AIG just signed a gigantic contract to replace almost all of their entire policy management systems. I think it was Duck Creek, could be Guidewire, but it's one of those two.
I think it was Duck Creek.
Yeah, I think it was Duck Creek.
Created.
And you kind of nailed it. There are very few companies in that up in that atmosphere. AIG is gigantic. They have a big wallet. They can afford to do this stuff. I don't think you have to go that far down in the scale in terms of size before it becomes a massive problem. Like, they just don't have the type of resources to be able to spend that sort of money like an AIG does. And so there needs to be more options for those kinds of companies, the mutuals, the farm bureaus, the regional carriers that are just not in that category, don't have the resources and have to kind of think. And then you brought up startups, and I'm like, well, that makes sense too. One of the advantage of startups is that they're bringing something unique to the table, right? So especially these new insurtech startups are digitally savvy. They can build stuff, right? And so they probably want to deal with a system that they can build stuff and kind of play nice with the other systems and not have everything be rigid and how it's occupying space on their side. There's probably a huge need for it that's been very understated for a long period of time.
Yeah, and I really believe that I think people do want to manage their own systems and be able to add products quickly. And we talk about we've been talking about speed to market for 20 whatever years, and I think certain things are prone to be speed to market, but most things are not. Because things take time, and people don't have the patience for things to take time. But I think we've gotten kind of used to it. But at some point, I think they'll figure that part out. The insurtechs have to get stuff to market quickly. The startups have to have systems to process that opportunity. And so, that's why I think microservices are great for that, because they are no code. They are drag and drop. It allows the business user to actually do the work. I mean, there is some IT involvement. I remember when we started Duck Creek, we used to say that the business analyst should do the work. And that was our intent, but we couldn't get the business analyst to do the work, right? It just never ended up on the business side. It usually ended up on the, it ended up in IT, or it ended up in Duck Creek, because these are massive projects that need people, and it's hard to have a lot of people to do these projects. But so I think microservices gives people an opportunity to manage these projects themselves. And if you need help, you get help, but and potentially crack the speed to market need that we've been talking about for so long.
The only thing we've been talking about longer than that is SEMC. So it's like, we can keep dreaming. We're close, but
maybe we'll retire by the time that thing comes up again. What do you say? You're getting closer, because I think you're in Florida now, right? Isn't that like a step closer to retirement, right?
I am. I'm surrounded by retired people. So so this has been a great conversation. I can't help but think, what's OWIT stand for?
So OWIT stands for One World Insurance Technology.
Okay.
And actually the urban, I keep saying that, the Urban Dictionary says OWIT means, oh, I want that. And so we have this little, our gearhead, our OWIT Global Gearhead guy, our gears represent those microservices. and it says, "Oh, I want that." So, so hopefully,
I love
yeah,
that. That is
yeah,
fantastic. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your career a little bit here, because you were with Duck Creek, which was a fantastically successful company, still
yeah. It was
is
great. It was a great, great
fantastic. So
time.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure they took good care of you. So why come back? Why? What are you? Are you nuts? Like, what was talk about the where how you saw this and what made you be that crazy that you want to do this again?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I think it's a very interesting industry. We have a tendency to do things that we know over and over and over again. When Duck Creek came along, it was a new way of doing things, right? Out of the box thinking. And I like that. I've always been involved with high risk companies for some reason. I just enjoy the opportunity. Knowing that the opportunity is, I believe in what I do. When I joined Duck Creek, I totally believed in what the guys were doing. It was amazing. And, for this, I mean, it's been how many years? I think I started Duck Creek right. I actually started Duck Creek like a week before the towers were hit. And I had
Wow.
left my solid job at Chubb, and I thought, oh my God,
What
this
did I
is
do?
the end, right? And I actually was in Bolivar, Missouri at the time, and I drove home with a consultant, somebody I didn't even know, but I drove home with this guy. But it's been a long time, right? It's been, let's see, was it 19 years?
Wow.
And so, it was time for some changes. Again, we get back into this. This is the type of industry we are. We do the same thing over and over and over again. And this is really a nice, refreshing, way of making a change in the industry again. It's fun, right? And not only that, but I get to run the company, which is like, exactly what I wanted to do. I have a great team of people. We all are, roll our sleeves up every day. I have conversations with new people, with people I've known for my whole entire career. And so it's a very exciting time for us. And I think as we start to really educate the industry on microservices and their macro results, as we say, that they'll get out of it, and people start to engage it, we're going to see a high success rate. And I think we'll see more entrants into the industry, just like we did at Duck Creek. I mean, at Duck Creek, when we started making momentum, the other vendors started changing the way they re-engineered their products to be tool-based, right? It was all coded before that. So yeah, I think I'm in it because it's just fantastic. I love what we do. I believe in what we're doing. We're doing the right thing. We're seeing the traction. It's exciting when you see traction. It's exciting when you see someone be successful, or you can help someone be successful. And it's great. One of the things I love about this too is that we get to create this really great work environment. We have really smart people. Everyone seems to be happy. We check in with them. And right now, obviously, we're all virtual. We have a team, by the way, here in the US. We have about 15 people. We have 4 people in the UK. That's a growing team. And then we have 20 people in Hyderabad, India, which is part of our team that are doing various work. We have a really nice group of people, and we all interact across the globe. So I just think it's fun. Oops, there goes my phone. Hopefully that's
It's Hyderabad.
hold on. Oh, that was pretty funny. Anyway, so we're doing it. We're really happy,
Yeah.
and
Well,
this is the place to be. It's really awesome. So yeah.
thank you for coming on. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you
your
for having
story.
me.
Thank you for your dedication to the industry and
Oh
wanting to see
yeah,
it through, wanting to solve it. So
sure.
I
This
appreciate you so much coming on and having this conversation with me.
yeah. Thank you, and don't forget. Oh, I
Oh,
want.
I want that.
Oh,
Yes, I do want that.
I'm
So
gonna send you one. Oh,
we're
I
gonna have
want
to
that.
figure out how to get me one of those. Awesome.
Okay, not
Uh,
a problem.
Wendy Aarons-Corman of OWIT, One World,
OWIT Global.
One World,
OWIT Global. One World Insurance Technology.
or oh, I want that.
Oh, I
So
want that.
people won't forget that. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.